Tonight I'd like to tell you about our educational giant, B.F. Skinner. His full name was Burris Frederick Skinner. He was born on March 20th, 1904 in Susquehanna, Pennsylvania. He lived with his father and mother and his younger brother, Edward. His younger brother actually died of a cerebral hemorrhage at a very young age, which left him as an only child. At a very young age, he decided that he was an atheist because his grandma described hell as a very awful, awful place. He remembered her telling about the coals in the fire and how they were so hot, and would describe the colors and the feeling. And then when he attended a carnival, remembered seeing the devil with horns and a spiky tail, and to calm his fears of the devil, he then decided that he was atheist. So as a young child, he always built contraptions and was very interested in inventing things and helping people. When he went to Hamilton College, he discovered that he loved writing and did that as a side hobby, I guess you could say, and went on to Harvard to study psychology. When he was there, he started doing his major inventions, a lot of those that we'll talk about in just a second. He met Yvonne Blue, and they got married in 1936 and had two daughters. Their names were Julie and Deborah. And a lot of people rumored that he used his daughters in his experiments or his trials, which was not true, but there was a book written that had expressed that rumor, and then it wasn't ever corrected. So for a long time, they thought that his youngest daughter, Deborah, was part of his experiments and that she had actually committed suicide. But that isn't the case. She's alive and married and in London and is an artist, I think I remember. So B.F. Skinner is brilliant. He won a very, very long list of awards. The very last award that he received, though, was August 10th, 1990. It was the American Psychology Association, the Lifetime Achievement Award, and he was actually the keynote speaker at that meeting and gave a 15-minute speech, and it was pretty amazing. He has a dry sense of humor, I guess you could say, but for a psychologist, I think you'd probably have to. When he gave that speech, he was very, very sick. He actually died 8 days later from leukemia. So some of his major accomplishments were the cumulative recorder, which used a cylinder and a pen, and it would record when like a key was tapped or responses of, and especially his experiments with the rats in the Skinner box. He recorded how many times that they had crossed a certain threshold and how fast they were possibly going. And that was one of his side inventions. An air crib was also one that he invented while his wife was a young mother. She was kind of in that frustrating mode, I think, of being a young mom and needing two other sets of hands. So he actually invented a crib where it was temperature controlled, and there was humidity control in there, and it kept the child clean, and it was easy to have them accessible in and out. And people were it was a very controversial thing when he built it, because people thought that it was more like a box for a child rather than something that kept them safe. The playpens at that time were open, much like ours, and so to put a baby inside of sort of a capsule was pretty controversial at the time. And as I've mentioned before, the Skinner box is probably his most well-known invention or experiment, where he had a pigeon and a rat, and when they made it through the maze of the Skinner box, they would tap a certain lever and they would be given food. And he was testing them to see if he could get a controlled response out of a conditioned environment, meaning that they would come through the maze and that they would know that as soon as they got to the end, that they could push that lever and that they would receive the treat or food of some kind. He is very much a behaviorist and thought that humans should be conditioned. He believes that, or believed, that reinforcers were a part of everyday life, and some other reinforcers could be very extravagant, as far as like when you go to work you get a paycheck, or such as the rats, and in his experiments, if you tapped something specific, that you were conditioned to receive a certain item. But he also explained that as parents, we also use these reinforcers, that when our children do something positive, we smile and we give them a thumbs up, or we clap, or we respond positively to the things that they are achieving. As far as in the classroom, this can also be a very helpful technique that we often use. Sticker charts, or moving. In my daughter and son's class, they have little clothespins that they move up and down according to how well they've done that day. That if they start at the very top, that's a really good day, and if they've had to move their clothespin, then that's one of the negative reinforcers, that they aren't acting exactly as they should. I have thought a lot when I was first reading behaviorism. I thought it was a little bit extreme, and then the more I think about how I parent and how I would like to enforce like consequences and rewards in a classroom, I've been a little bit humbled to think that I might be a little bit more like B.F. Skinner than I thought. So it's been very fun to discover some new things about him and learn about his past, and I hope that you enjoy the presentation that's to come, and also the paper. Thanks so much.